Sneha ma'am, we welcome you in this session on behalf of HM Patel Institute of English Training and Research. I welcome you in this session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Student, let us have a brief introduction about Sneha ma'am. Miss Sneha Bajaj is a PhD scholar. She is pursuing her PhD from SP University, and she is also, cleared KSAT examination, that is Karnataka State Eligibility Test for Assistant Professor. Madam has already completed few diploma courses also. Let us talk about her experience. Madam served as the head of the department in Krupanidhi Degree College, Bangalore, and she is still working as a master trainer of English and communication skill in Frankfurt Institution of Air Hostesses. Fine, moving ahead, her special interest is working with the special child. So she's been working with autistic children for last 8 years in Bangalore with 3 different institutions, and she also worked as a volunteer for slow learners and handicapped students. Uh, she recently joined as a volunteer at HMDC Institute Vadodara, that is home for mentally and differently abled children. So I think Madam is the perfect person for us, for the discussion on inclusive education. So Madam, now the session, I handed over the session to you. Sneha ma'am, please.
Thank you so much, Megha ma'am, for the introduction. I don't know whether I deserve this kind of introduction, but to be very frank, I just want to add one more thing that my PhD guide is Dr. Bose, and I'm so proud for that. Okay, uh, let's start the session story. Boy out from the school, and he has been handed over a letter by a teacher. He went to the mother, and the mother read the letter. Mother thought, if I say the same stuff which is written in the letter, the child will be disheartened. So she twisted the content of the letter and told the child that the school does not want you to go there because you have a better school at home. And then after, she started teaching him. And when that child grew up, all the schools has learned the basic theory of the same child which has been developed by that person. And you know who was that person? Albert Einstein. So let's begin the story with that all the retarded person or all the person who has been told that slow learners are not always retarded, are not always the slow learners. Okay. So you have to just identify the ways and means, and especially as a teacher, we supposed to identify the slow learners of the class as well as the disabled children of the class. And this is what we are going to see in this inclusive education session. The session I'm going to cover in this session is concept of the concept of inclusive education, aims and objectives of the inclusive education, and the most important thing what I'm going to share is how you can strategize as a teacher to develop inclusive education in your classroom, which is going to be the demand for the next one, the next generation. So let's start the session. The word itself has 2 words inside. The phrase inclusive education has 2 words inside it. The first one is, what is education? In short, we can say that education is the way of life. But majorly, we miscommunicate it as the study or the learning of the school. But what we are going to see here inclusive education, it is the education which is the basic primary education. According to the Google Baba, one of the definition of the education is the act or the process of acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually for mature life. The another definition of education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. Now let's see what is inclusive education. The word itself is including the meaning of the education. Okay, it is inclusion. That means inculcation. That means coming together. Okay. So what exactly it means here is all students attend and are welcomed by their neighborhood schools and in age appropriate regular classes and are supported to learn, contribute and participate in common learning environment. Where will you get this common learning environment? Only in the schools. According to the Simon Aspis, inclusive education should create opportunities for all the learners to work together. According to the National Education Ministry regulations, inclusive education is an education system that provides opportunities for special needs and talented students to pursue education at mainstream schools. I emphasize the word mainstream schools, along with other neurotypical or normal students. Now, when we go through this kind of definitions, what do we understand? We just understand one thing, that we have to include all types of the students. Now, the question arises, what are all kinds of students? In the normal school, we see some students who are coming from higher middle class, lower middle class, upper middle class, you know, some from different religions, some for different class, some are from the different caste, and their culture, their behavior, their attitude is shown in their value system and the way they react to others. But when we talk about inclusive education, we are not only talking about the people who are different from this way, from the diversified way, what we say in India, diversity. It is much deeper than this, and we need to understand that. For understanding that, let's go through the basic 4 broad types of the education system we have in India. I have the experience of teaching in US as well as Canada for very few, for very few years. But what I have seen is the education system of India is totally different. I'm not getting into the discussion whether it is right or wrong, but the system is different, and that is the reason we have to get into the system, because you all are going to become a teachers. So in that case, you must be knowing the system where you are going to get in. So to understand exactly the deeper meaning of the inclusive education, let's go through the 4 broader types. The first one is the normal type, or you can say traditional system or typical system. The second one is special system. The third one is integrated system, and the fourth one is inclusive system. Now, I'll not be very surprised if you want to have heard this kind of words. Let's go through one by one slowly. When we talk about the traditional or the normal schooling or normal education system, we are really talking about the normal basic schoolings we had. Okay? What you and me had it. We all are the normal students and we all went to the normal schoolings. So the normal schooling is only for the developed students who can fit into the proper, norms of the society, who can understand the basic behaviors. So we can conclude that, okay, it is a regular students, regular basic normal students who can, be, attended in the normal system with the help of regular teachers along with the help of the normal curriculum. Okay? So the student is normal, teachers are normal, even the curricular they are going through is normal. So on the whole, we can say it is typical traditional system. And this system has been going on from years and years, in fact from decades and decades. The second one is the special system, special education system. As the word means special, it is meant for some special children who had some specific needs. Now, who are these children who had a specific needs? So, you have to identify the specific students who had a specific disabilities. Now, what kind of disabilities we will see first, okay? But let's go through this, for example, blind. They have a special school. Deaf and dumb, they have a special school. As Megha ma'am mentioned that, okay, I am working with autistic children, they have a special schools. Even, the children with the autopsy or the children with the cerebral epilepsy also has the special school. Okay. So these kind of children are specific children who are having a specific disabilities and they have been taught by a special teachers, not a regular teachers, a special teachers, and even they have specific curriculum. So do the normal boy or girl fit into this particular special school? Can they take the admission in this particular school? No. And that's why we call this system a rigid system. It is only meant for those who has a specific disabilities. It is not open for everyone. The third system what we are going to talk about now is integrated. When we talk about integrated, we are talking about the children who had the low IQs, who do not have feasible disabilities which you can identify properly, that someone's limbs are not working or someone cannot see properly or someone cannot hear properly. But this differentiation here is according to the IQ level. And nowadays, they even take, the differentiation for EQ level, that is emotional quotient. According to UNICEF, the IQ level of the child, if it is up to 3 or more than 3, it is counted as a normal child. But if it is below 3, it is counted as a slow learner. Again, it depends on the integrity of that, IQ level. Is it too low? Is it 0.01? It is 0.5? It is 1.2? Or is it 2.5? Or it is 2.8, very, very close to 3. So, integrated system is made for the students whose IQ level is more than 2 but less than 3. So again, we are coming to the specific, parameters of the students who can be admitted in the system. So the child has a kind of a disability, the child has a kind of a problem, but which can be changed through rehabilitation, through counseling, through therapies to fit into the normal schools. So here, what we have to understand is the system will not change. The child has to change to fit into the system. If the child changes, he can get into the system and he can go to the normal education system up, the first one. But if the child cannot see the change, or if he cannot cope up with the change, in that case, again, he will stay and remain in the same integrated system. So again, we can say that this system is rigid because the system doesn't change. The child has to change. Okay. So the first one is traditional one. The second one is rigid one because it's only for the special ones. The third one is again for the very specifically designed system for the lower level of the IQ students. And now we needed something which can be balanced for everything, because there is a right to education for everyone. Even in India, we follow the right to education. When we see the law, I will tell you something about that. And that is the reason some of the scholars and some of the psychologists have come together and identified that there is a need of inclusive education system. And it has been identified in somewhere 17th century. Yeah, I'm talking about 17th century. And I can see some traces of the same inclusive system in our mythology. For example, Krishna and Sudama stayed in Sandipani Rishi's ashram, and they were together and they were getting all kind of educations together, all together. The Krishna was, from one proper region, and he was fit and fine. Balram was fit and fine, but Sudama was not fit and fine. Sudama was handicapped, if you remember. Okay, so I can see the traces in our Indian mythology much earlier than the counselors and the psychologists who has come out of it. And I feel proud for that. So this inclusive education system teaches us that every child is unique. Every child is different. And all the children have the right to learn. And they can learn according to their capacities, according to their abilities, or according to their parameters of brains. So they are different, they have a different abilities. They are coming from a different ethnic groups or different, sizes of the groups. The age may be different, the background may be different, the gender may be different. So diversity is too much. Okay, here we are not only talking about the disabilities, we are also talking about the disabilities through the person, through the child, where he comes from, the root system of the behavior of the child. Here, what we are actually just going to see is the system is changing according to the needs of the child. It is more flexible system because any child can go to any classroom in inclusive education. In a normal system, the child has been allocated one classroom. Special, they have a special classroom itself of themselves. Integrated, they also are have been divided and they are not supposed to go to any other class and sit. Even now for all of us, we have been divided into the classes and the divisions. And we cannot go and sit in division B if we belong to division A. But in inclusive system, it depends on the moves of the child where he wants to go and which class he wants to sit. For example, I go to HMDC and we have, I go and tell them stories and make them learn through stories, through the moral things and all that. At the same time, You know, there is one lady who's coming and teaching them a little bit of handwriting, and there is one lady who's coming and teaching them a craft. Okay? So we don't force the children to come and sit in our class. Today, if the mood of the child is there to learn the craft, the child will go and sit into the craft. If he is ready to, like, listen to the music, listen to the rhymes, listen to the stories, then he will come and sit in my class. So what I mean to say here is, in inclusive education system, the basic and the most important thing is the system is very flexible, and system changes according to the child. The child never changes according to the system. And this is what we have to learn as a teacher. This is the most important intake of inclusive education system. Okay, so now when we are talking about the disabilities, there are different kinds of disabilities. But before going there, I would like to throw some light on the definitions of the disabilities. Because unfortunately, the system is such that even if I have an autistic child with me, and if I want to get an admission in the special class or in a special integrated school or special system, what I have to do is I have to go through the medical report. And they will design and they will divide the students according to their medical reports. That this child will go to class number so and so, and this child will go to class number so and so. So, unfortunately, they don't see the mental level. They don't see the social level. They don't see any other skills. They first and foremost, they look into the medical report. So let's start the definition of the disability from the medical point of view. So what is disability from the medical point of view is the impaired of the body or sensory part. Now when I just mean to say that impaired of the body means any part of your body, whether it is visible or invisible. See, why I am telling you visible and invisible is some of the students will have a kidney problem, lung problem. They have something which is inside organ which is not working properly. And outside is obviously you can see, like, the hand is not working, the leg is not working, whether it is paralyzed, whether it is like, he doesn't have a leg, or if he has two legs, or maybe more fingers than normal or something. So it's called impairment of the body. And sensory part. Sensory part is like, we have, all of you know that we have 5 senses, and either of the senses is not working, that means you are disabled in the medical term. Social definition of the disability is not fitting into the ideal mode of the society. Now this is something which is very important for the students with disability. Because first and foremost, they are not welcomed. They are not accepted by the society. And the feeling of not accepted is, as much hurting as you get a wound and the wound is bleeding. If you are not talking to somebody in the class, you will never, find it easy to talk in that class or open up in that class, because you will hesitate and you will actually shell out yourself that, okay, no, I'm not going to talk. Okay, so why it is like that? Because you feel that there is one person in the class who's not accepting you. Imagine the child who has a disability and he sees that all other students, almost, everyone except him, are not ready to accept him as and how he is. So this is the social definition of social, disability. Legally, whom we can call disabled is the limitations in the intellectual activities. Now, intellectual activities in a legal definition means that you cannot think properly, you can not take a decision properly. So, you don't have a thinking power, you don't have a motor skill, you don't have a cognitive skills, you don't have even the decision making skill. Okay, or sensory, all the five senses related, or some of the combination of both. Okay, and all these disabilities lead to the social exclusion in the society. The first and foremost, the feeling of non-acceptance itself is bugging up, stressing the child. So the first thing what you have to learn as a teacher is accept the child how he is or how she is. Very, very important lesson in inclusive education. Okay, so when we are talking about the disabilities, now we saw the definition. Now let's see actually the types of the disabilities. So the first disability is a visual disability. So you can have a total blindness, you can have a low vision, you can include the children with the color blindness, or there are some children who cannot see in the night. So it is night blindness. So it is regarding the visual thing. The second disability is motor skills. Motor skills is you cannot you cannot be mobile. You are totally immobile or partially mobile. Okay. So one or both arms are affected, one or both legs are affected, one or any of the 10 fingers are affected, or you have immovable spinal cords or immovable neck, where it will restrict you to just stay at one place. You cannot move yourself. Okay. Next one is auditory and speech impaired. That is related to again ENT. Okay, so the deaf and the hard hard of hearing, suppose you have a problem but you can listen, you have to do lots of practice to listen something, or you have to just give a special effort to listen something. Again, in a deafness, they are there are some things that some children are only deaf but they can talk, and some children cannot talk because they cannot listen. Okay, so again this one. Then again, some people can listen but they cannot talk. So deaf and speech impaired. Some are only speech impaired. Okay. The next one is cognitive and neurological disabilities. Yeah, here we are talking about the mentally retarded and the slow learners whose IQ is lower than 3. Okay, so you can include the dyslexia, the learning disabilities, cerebral palsy, mental illness, ataxia, autism, autographia, etc. Okay, now this one, this kind of cognitive thing is related to brain. Okay, if you have heard about Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise was suffering from autographia that led to autism. Our own Hrithik Roshan and Abhishek Bachchan had dyslexia. Okay, and if you have seen the movie Tare Zameen Par, you will understand what is exactly a dyslexia. Okay, and actually thanks to this Hindi movies, at least we can understand few of the things, few of the problems and challenges they face. Okay, so in short, we can divide the disabilities into the two major things. One is physical and one is mental, and both are different. And that's why I divided into the different two parts. Okay, the first one, physical, you can include the mobility related and sensory related. So mobility is hands and legs related, and sensory is all the visual, audio, and speech related. Mental is neurological, related, and mental disorders and slow learners. See, I have kept two things in a two different way: neurological and the mental disorder. So neurological comes along with the the medical terms, where you can identify what is exactly the things. But mental disorders is not very easy to identify. The children had some kind of phobia, and that's why they are slow learning. They may not concentrate. If they can concentrate, they can only partially concentrate. Okay, so this all the mental disorder. So till then we just learn about the disabilities. Now let's see what the law says. As I told you, the inclusive education started in the 17th century, but legally it has never started in India. It only started in 1975 with the precedent for inclusive education was set in the least restrictive environment LRE, which is the clause of our constitution, clause number 94 to 142. It is originally passed in 1975. Look at this. How many years back? Almost 45 years back. Okay, but till now, even now, if you go to see the normal school, they will hesitate to take the slow learners or even the mentally disabled, mentally disabled children. Why? Because they don't want to just get into the trouble. They don't want challenges because they always feel that there is a special schools. Why can't they go there? Okay, so we have to change the attitude, we have to change the mindset for this. Next, the most recent version of the law is known as the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA we call it in a legal matter. It was legislated in 2004, and now in 2009 we have a Right to Education Act, which is ensuring that education to all children irrespective to the caste, religion, ability and so on, and that so on is also included in all kind of disabilities, whether it is a physical or the mental disabilities. What are the government initiatives? The government has already started National Council of Educational Research and Training, that is NCERT, what we know it in a short form. It has joined the hands with UNICEF, and they come out with the project called Integrated Education for Disabled Children. It is known as PIET in the year 1987. What was their intention? Their intention was to strengthen the integration of learners, and with disabilities into the regular schools. And this is what brought the third system of the integrity system. Okay. The next initiative by the government has been taken in the very recent year, and the concept of inclusive education has been broadened up here. And now they are not called that a mentally disabled student, or we can't call them the students with disability, but it has been called as students who may be having a disadvantage, or in Gujarati we call it Divyang, correct? Or we can say that it is students with special abilities. In 2005, the Ministry of the Human Resource Development implemented a national action plan. This is very important. This is why after 2005, you can see the movement of inclusive education is going much faster because of Ministry of Human Resource has get into the action, and they have included the education of the children and youth with the disabilities in the normal schooling. Furthermore, it started with the public schooling, for example. Furthermore, IEDC, it is IEDC's inclusion in education of the children with disabilities was revised and named as inclusive education of the disabled at the secondary stage. Now, when we just talk about any kind of system or any kind of new system which we have to introduce, or any kind of system we want it to get into the movement, we need to know the objectives or aims of that particular education system. So first of all, what are the aims of the inclusive education system is education for all. Here the right to education comes. But unfortunately, the right to education does not give the right to employment. And this is where we are lacking. Our system has included the education. They have told that, okay, yes, these children can study in inclusive schooling or inclusive classrooms. But they have not given the right to get employed. Majorly all the corporates which is private and which is like, perfect commercial corporates will never hire like, mental disabled children, even though whatever talent they have. Okay, yeah, they also have their limitations because they have to just like, follow the deadlines. There will be much more stress which the children will not be able to cope up with. But still, the law is still little weak in this way. The next aim is protection of rights, and this is why we teach the inclusive education, so that the normal children who studied with the disabled children are looking into the category that, okay, what they can do it instead of what they can't do it. When you have not spent some time with them, you only see their disabilities. But when you spend some time with them, when you do schooling with them, then you will understand exactly what are the positive things they have, what are the like, capacities they have, what they can do. And there are some times that, okay, I take even my students volunteers. I'm fortunate enough to like, the GSFC University has provided me like, few group of the students, like, so we have 3 groups of the students who turn by turn come along with me every Saturday to HMDC, and we go and we just teach them, something, but at the end we learn something and come out. So this is what, when you are coming together and schooling together, so inclusive education will teach you this, that you don't have to see the negative things, that what they cannot do. See something what they can do. So when you are coming out of the inclusive education and when you are hiring the people, you will see that what those people can do, and you can protect the rights of those children. The next aim of the objectives of the inclusive system is identification of the skills. As I told you, when you go and spend some time with them, you identify that some children are very good at something. They are not only meant for making the baskets or weaving the mats. Okay, I'm sorry to say that, like, the society has just like, grouped them into only, those particular activities. No, they are much more if you identify the skills. And you can sharpen those skills if you are there with them. The next one is development of the social consciousness. Obviously, as a social animal, we are supposed to have a social consciousness, that how is our society, and after a few years, where is our society going to be, and how are we going to see our next generations, after a few years. The next one is to prepare for a new challenges. Yes. What if right now you are a normal child, but God forbid, keeping the fingers crossed, something happens to you. You might get a paralysis, or you might lose one of your organs. Are you prepared for that new challenges? If you have studied in this inclusive education, you will definitely identify the ways and means to cope up with the new challenges. Not only you, somebody from your family gets into, some mishap, and God forbid again, like, something happens to them, you can teach them how to survive. You can motivate them, not only by words, but by your actions and by involving them into day-to-day activities. The next theme of the inclusive education system is development of the brotherhood. I feel that social media and the technology has brought us together, and that's why right now I can be in front of you, being so far also. Yes, but somewhere they have brought separated from each other. This separation has to be coped up. This gap has to be filled. Okay? And this can be filled only by feeling for the others. Now, I don't mean mercy here. Why I don't mean mercy here, I will discuss later. Okay. Here you have to just understand that okay, you have to stand by each other. The brotherhood means you have to stand by each other. When you are in the problem, they will stand by you. When you are in the problem, you know, they will, and when they are in the problem, you will. Correct? The last one is to improve the quality of education. Obviously, when you learn, when you see the people in the trouble, it will be a kind of a motivation for you all that, if they can, why can't I? Correct? So it will definitely improve the quality of the education what we have it. And if the quality of education is improved, obviously the lifestyle, the life standard of the person will improve, and at the end, the society will improve. And that is what we need through education. That is the main aim of the education, reformation of the society. So on the whole, what you have to understand is the inclusion is not a program, it's a mindset. You have to do it with the mind. You have to accept those people. It's a mindset. You have to make up your mind to do something. It is the way we treat others and the way they treat us. So it is not only one side, communication or one side area. It is the two-way communication. How they treat you, how you react, and how you treat them and how they react. Okay? Inclusion is the opportunity to learn together. I emphasize learn together. Okay? And from each other. From each other. By respecting the right of each other. This is what is lacking right now. When we talk about the inclusive education, we know that we have to learn together, we have to be under the same rooftop, we have to be in the same classroom, and we are learning also from each other, but we are not respecting the rights of each other. This is what we have to learn, respecting the right of each other. And the charity begins from home. All the inclusiveness of education system starts with the teacher, because the teacher is the central point. Teacher is the focal point. The teacher is the governing point, or I can just say that okay, ship of captain of the ship. Okay, so ship cannot move around without the wish or the direction of the teacher. Okay, so teachers play a very important role here, and teachers need to know how to tackle the students of the disability. So for that, let's discuss some of the strategies which you have to enact or impose as a teacher. Normal teaching, you will be taught in the schooling, but abnormal teaching, this I call it abnormal teaching with my own experience. Because even though I have the experience of teaching of almost 14 years, I always, whenever I used to go to this mentally retarded people, I always feel that I do not know teaching. I had to relearn. I had to again relearn, and unlearn sometimes, because what I learned in Bangalore, while spending some time with them, when I came to Gujarat, when I came to Baroda, the scenario was totally different. So whatever I have learned there to work with the disability, I have to totally unlearn and go through the new way of learning. So this is where a teacher's role is, that you have to learn how to abnormally being a teacher. Okay. So first and foremost thing is positive attitude. This is needed for any normal personality. If you want to be a good personality, you should always have a positive attitude. Everyone would have told you. But being with the disabled children, it is very, very difficult, because there is very thin line being empathetic and being sympathetic. Here when we say to you that you be positive, you have to be empathetic, not sympathetic. Okay? So a rigorous literature review of the studies found that most teachers had either neutral or the negative attitudes towards inclusive education. Now, if the education system is not being accepted by the teacher itself, okay, either you are neutral or you are negative, then you will not be able to perform well. Agree? And that is the reason, you have to have a positive attitude about the inclusive education, that yes, it is better for the society, it is better for the children, it is like, it is good for everyone. Okay? It turns out that the much of this is because, see why it is, because they, that means the teachers, do not feel that they are very knowledgeable, competent or confident about how to educate students with disabilities. This is something you have to really understand. Yeah, even when I have been like, I have been kept in front of the disabled child uh, when I was in Chennai, and that was the first time I also was negative, and I just felt that okay, I cannot work with them. I can never work with them. I have no patience to work with them. But as and when I started like, learning about it, I started reading the literature, I started like, how to, be a little more friendly with them, started spending some time with them. And then I realized that there is nothing like, you have to learn. You have to just be with them. You have to just love them. You have to just accept them. That is something which your positive attitude will teach you. Evidence supports that, to be effective, teachers need an understanding of the best practices in a teaching, in a normal teaching, and of adapting instructions for the students with the disabilities. How you have to give them an instruction, that is a way of giving the instruction, because they hardly pay attention to your verbal things. Okay? But positive attitude towards inclusion system are also amongst the most important things for creating an inclusive classroom that works. So as a teacher, you have to just remember the first lesson is positive attitude. And for being positive, what you have to do is the next strategy. You might be having a prejudice. As I told you, like, I had a prejudice that I know I have no patience to work with them. I can never work with them. But as and when I have like, started working with them, I realized that, my prejudice was, wrong, and I can work with them. And now I have been working with them for years and years. Okay, so prejudice is proven always poisonous in any of the field, not only this field. And as a teacher, we are conscious, or consciously or unconsciously, sometimes being biased towards the people, like, biased towards the gender, age, disabilities, etc. So that's the reason the prejudice only leads to the complexity. And that's the reason the students, like, the teachers have to avoid the bias. Okay, and don't be prejudiced towards disabled children, that you can't teach, you can teach, or like, you have a skepticality. No. The next one is, if you are going to teach, what are you going to use it? So use a variety of instructional format. See, in a normal teaching is very, very easy. Give the instruction. Children, open the book of social science, open the page number 14, or go to the English lesson number 4, page number 54. Go to the first exercise, exercise number 1A. Go to this, fill in the gap. Very easy to give the instructions. But the same thing is not easy when you are dealing with the disabled children. So what you have to do is, you have to start the instruction with the whole group, then divide them into the flexible grouping. So here I have just written that, okay, start with the whole group instruction, and then the transition to the flexible grouping. So now you transit them into the smaller groups, and even sometimes the pairing. Okay. Then with regards to the whole group, using the technology such as interactive whiteboards is related to high students engagement. When you use the instruction on the whiteboard, it is like, it is very easy to engage the students. But regarding to the flexible grouping is the grouping with all the, like, all the people, all the children together, inclusive. Okay. For younger students, these are often teacher led. Younger students will not listen to the mothers, the parents or something, but they will listen to the teachers first. Have you seen the children telling that, okay, no, my teacher told me this, so I will only do this, not because my mother told this. Okay, can be student with the teachers monitoring. So now you have to divide into the group where the children will listen to the teacher and some of the group will follow the teacher's instruction. But some of the group do not need the teacher's instructions. They know that they have to do this particular task and they will start themselves, where the teacher only has to monitor. Then the peer supported learning, peer supported, like all the people together, okay, peer supported learning can be very effective and engaging and take the form of the pair work, cooperative grouping and peer tutoring and the student led demonstration. And this will definitely impact on the success of the education system, because it will make the students like how to work in the group, how to instruct the other peers, how to take the instructions from them, so the child will become a good team player. Now again, as you just choose the instructional level, you have to even choose the material. So the class as a whole can understand the basic instructions, but sometimes you need to divide the class into the smaller categories, and in the parameter of the understanding and interpreting the technical instructions, and this will lead to divide the class into the different categories. And the more time you spend and observe with the students who have the disabilities, you will definitely identify the needs of the separate appropriate material for the different groups. So when you are teaching them, like one group who can just do with themselves, you have to only give them the task, and they will be able to do it, or just push them little, or just give them little bit of guidance. So there 10% guidance is needed. The another group 20% guidance is needed. Another group you have to just keep on giving the worksheets and worksheets to teach the parts of speech. And some group, even after you give them too many worksheets, they will only understand 50% or even the 10% of that. So you have to choose what kind of material you are going to use for what kind of grouping. And again, enjoy what you do. Play, learn and grow together. The best way to teach is to enjoy what you teach. Okay, what you learn, what you relearn, and the procedure of unlearning. This will lead to the unconscious learning for the students with disabilities. And eventually, both the parties are to be benefited through this. Yeah, both the parties. Okay, this is what I'm experiencing right now. Okay, so the teacher has to learn to be one of them. You be the part of them. Indulge yourself in the activity what they are doing it. Okay, and be one. They should feel that, okay, yeah, you can share anything with them, oh, she's not a teacher, she's one of us. Okay? Collaborate with the parents, family and caretaker. Why do we need to do this for the specially disabled children is, the parents know what are their fears and their threats. Okay? So the parents are the closest to the disabled child, so it's obvious, and in some cases the family or the caretaker. Okay, so when you go to the orphanage and work with them, there is a caretaker who will be always taking care of them, and he'll be or she will be observing them. So she or he must be knowing what kind of threats or weaknesses this person has. Okay, so they know much better about their weaknesses and threats, and working together with them make it it's easy to understand, and easy to make you understand what kind of method of the technology or what kind of materials you have to just use on this particular child. So you have to closely collaborate with the parents. Be observant. This is the most important thing when you are working in the thing with the disabled children, because they hardly talk. They very scantily express themselves. So here, observation is the only clue to identify the change in the child's behavior. So you have to just keep on marking their non-verbal behaviors, their gestures, their facial expressions, their repetitive actions of like, some of them will keep on nodding their head, some of them will keep on like, messing their fingers, some of them will tapping their legs. Okay, so they have their like, particular gestures. You have to keep on observing them. Some of them, when they become stressful, they become very, very worried or tense, they do these activities much more faster than the normal. So you identify that, okay, yeah, there is something which is bugging him. So whatever you're doing, the activity, just slow down that activity, or ask him, or give him little more extra attention. So okay, this may lead you to the right path. Yes, and this is the most important thing. As I told you, be empathetic, don't be sympathetic. Very, very important, because they don't need your mercy. They need your support. They don't need your pity. They need help. Okay, so you have to seriously understand that you are not going to help them. You are not going to pity them. You are not actually doing something which is like, you are obligating them. You are just supporting them to get the education. It's very, very important to be empathetic towards them and not being sympathetic. So understand that, okay, be supportive to them, give them a support, but don't feel pity. That's a wrong attitude. And at last, I wanted to say that the statement of Lisa Friedman, that inclusion is a mindset and it is a way of thinking. It is not a program that we run or classroom in our school or a favor we do for someone. The inclusion is who we are. It is who we must strive to be. And as a teacher, I urge you to be more inclusive in the society. If you don't be inclusive in the education system, we have a limitation as a teachers. But at least in the society, be more inclusive. Okay? Thank you so much.
Yes, Sneha madam, thank you very much. We enjoyed your session very much. Actually, when you were talking about the story of Krishna and Sudama, I also remember a story of one of the disciples of Shankaracharya, whose name was Giri. Later on, who became famous as Totakacharya.
Perfect.
Yes, initially he was considered to be mentally retarded. Later on, he became the first Shankaracharya of Jyotimat Pitham of Uttarakhand. So
Perfect.
very well said, madam. A lot of information, and we all are interested in this. Actually, we do feel that inclusive education should be part and parcel of B.Ed program also, because every teacher must know all such things. So thank you very much. On behalf of yes, on behalf of HM Patel Institute of English Training and Research, and on behalf of IQAC, I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And on behalf of my students also, who are learning this point as one of the point in syllabus, uh, uh, we shall find some more time to discuss with you, because it is already 5. So I think we shall conduct the discussions later on. But I think this discussion will go on, and we found it really very interesting. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Thank you so much, sir.